everybody. Welcome to Before College TV Live. Tonight, I am with students from Roosevelt University in the heart of downtown Chicago. And this is a real treat. And I don't use the word treat regularly. I mean, I'm really bringing it out tonight because what's really cool is when you look at the panelists, you can see like they are in really interesting places. Chandler is on the 19th floor of which building are you in, Chandler?
The Wabash building.
The Wabash building. Haven is on what floor?
22.
She's on 22. Madison, where are you?
31st floor.
31st floor. And Sené, what about you?
I am at a friend's house in Pennsylvania.
What floor?
Oh, the third. Sorry.
the third floor. That is fast. So everybody is on different floors, and they are here to share with you what life is like at Roosevelt, why they chose this amazing school. We have a lot of artists here tonight as well. So if you're a performer and that is your passion, you're going to really learn why Roosevelt was the best fit for Chandler and Madison and Haven and Sené. So welcome everybody. To start off, I want to make sure that I use the appropriate pronouns. So Chandler, what pronouns should I use?
He, him, and his.
He, him, and his. I'm also he, him, and his. Madison, what about you?
She, her, hers.
Sené, what about you?
I use she, her, hers.
And Haven, what about you?
I also use she, her, hers.
Wonderful. Great. Is that something like the pronoun, sharing pronouns, is that something that you ever talk about? Do people just say what their pronouns are? Like, how does someone even bring that up where if there's someone watching who's like pronouns, why do I even need to do that? How do I do that? Like, have you had, Madison, how does that work when you talk to people?
I don't necessarily want to misspeak just because I am someone who does identify as a cisgendered woman. But I don't know, when I sign into my Zooms, I have my pronouns in my name, which I do to bring awareness, but also to make it more, first of all, it's easier for teachers and other students to know what to call you and how to refer to you, but it also makes it easier for the students that don't use either she or he, or they use they or something like that. Yeah. It makes it easier for them to be more open and honest about their identity and their pronouns and how they would like to be referred to.
I have a question that I want to offer to all of you. It's the first big question, and I want to know what your dream is. And I would love to hear like the crazy, delusional, wild dream, the dream that maybe people think you're crazy to even share, if you're comfortable sharing that particular dream. Sené, would you be willing to be the first person to share your dream? And let's just say it's a professional dream or personal dream, 5, 10, 20 years in the future.
Yes. So I go to school for musical theater. I'm a musical theater dance emphasis major. And just with that, I have always, before I'd ever seen a Broadway show, wanted to be on Broadway, specifically, even before I'd ever seen the show, in the ensemble of Wicked. And then I saw the show, and then that was just heightened even more because it is such such a beautiful show. And I mean, it's a difficult thing to do. And a lot of people, they're like, oh, what do you want to do? And you tell them, and they're like, okay, now what do you let's be serious. But I've always dreamed of that. And then once my Broadway career is over, I actually would love to start or to head a musical theater program at a historically Black college or university.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. What role would you want in Wicked?
Just the ensemble. Literally, when you see the show, when I watched it, the whole time I followed this gorgeous, redheaded dancer, and she, they did this lift, and she, kicked her leg in the air, and everything, moved in slow motion. And I was like, I want that to be me.
I love it. It's so interesting that it's not, I mean, you don't want to be you don't want to be the star. It's I forget the names. There's who are the Elsa or not Elsa.
Elphaba and
Elsa,
Glinda.
yes. And what's the other one?
Glinda.
And Glinda, yes. So it's not like you're like I'm going to star, but you're going to be on the ensemble, which I think is such an interesting angle. You know, that like you want to be part of this group and you want to just be extraordinary to just make the production so great. Is that just who you are? Like, do you just want to be a team member and make the team just even better without having to be the star?
I love being the person who like comes into a team and they're like, wow, for some reason the energy is just so great all of a sudden. So I think I do enjoy that. And I think that that's a part of it is I feel a lot of pride when I come like into a team, and then like it enhances the overall like the whole of the team or like the ensemble or the production. But I also just really value that so much because I mean I think it's so beautiful. I mean, especially when you're in the ensemble of a show that you can you may not get as much stage time, but you can just impact someone so deeply even still.
Your ego, because you're performers, you know, all of you are performers. So I would think you have egos, you know, because sometimes that goes hand in hand, but maybe not a big one. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe that's just a bad generalization, but it doesn't seem like that's an issue for you, Sené.
Now I will say I take a lot of pride in my work. I wouldn't say that I have an ego, but I take pride in my work, and when I do it well and someone goes, wow, like I really love the way you did that, like that does give me a lot of like yes, because I did put the work in. But I think a lot of the performers that I have met, and I think a lot of the performers here at Roosevelt, like I don't think so that ego is that big of an issue.
It's like a we rather than a me mentality, which I got that sense from talking to other students. Haven, so tell me, I want to know your dream. What's your dream? What do you think about? You close your eyes, you get really excited. You think, I don't even know if this can happen, or you think it's definitely going to happen because you know it's going to happen and it's just so exciting. And what is that?
I really would like to be an international opera singer. So a lot of people just want to sing at like the Metropolitan Opera, like that's the peak, like the ultimate place to sing. But I really want to specialize in German lead. So I would love to be in like Berlin, Germany. That's kind of where I want to go to for grad school abroad. But that's like the ultimate, the peak is for me is German opera.
Is it really hard to get onto the German stage and to perform opera? Is that like super ridiculously competitive?
So as an American, it is. European countries really, they don't like American opera singers very much. So it's very rare that American opera singers get to cross over, especially in Germany. Germany's very, very into the arts and into opera, so they're very set in what they like in their opera singers.
Right. Okay. Well, this will be cool because what we can do is we can all come together in like 10 years and we can do a follow-up, which would be a blast just to see, because like it doesn't even matter if you make it to the stage because the journey of just trying to get there is going to just be a wild trip. You know, like it's awesome. So I'm just so excited. I think that's what's really fun is even if you don't get to exactly where you want to go, just having that experience of trying to get there is just amazing and exhilarating. Madison, what about you? What is your big dream? What excites you? You seem like you have something ready.
Okay, so I have like very non-specific. It's like a two-parter, I guess. So I guess like when I decided to like go to college for musical theater, basically my dream is to have that opening night, hopefully on Broadway someday, like curtain rising, crowd starts cheering, like that moment. I cannot explain to you the amount of adrenaline and joy and happiness. And if that doesn't happen, then like, fine. And I'll have worked as hard as I can to get there. But like, that would be like I don't know. Just I get really excited for, even if it's like a swing, because honestly, so much respect for swings. I would love to be one. But like if I'm just like a throw in one night or something like that, like I don't care. Just like the moment of a Broadway debut. It doesn't matter what show. Just
Right.
And then the second part of it is kind of silly, but I am so excited way down the line to be old and having known that I've accomplished everything in my life that I want to do and tried and worked as hard as I can for everything that I've set my mind to. And yeah, I can't wait to just sit there and be like, yes, I did that.
That's interesting. Are you good at rejection?
Um, I wouldn't necessarily say anyone's great at rejection. I feel like I've dealt with my fair amount of it already. I danced ballet for like a long, long time, and there's a whole lot of rejection in that. And then I went to theater, which is even more rejection. So I kind of just take it as like a part of life at this point. And not to like sound cliche, but like, I don't know, I don't necessarily think everything happens for a reason, but there's always something to get out of whatever happens. There's always something to work towards or something to move towards that wouldn't have happened if that other thing had.
I couldn't agree more. And it's as like, how old are you? Like 20 something or?
I'm 19.
You're not even 20 and you're so wise. It's really a gift. Cause I'm like an expert on rejection, I'm like the king of rejection. It's one of my gifts is I'm just phenomenal getting rejected by everybody. And it still hurts, but I'm able to move forward. But when you were talking about being old and having a life where you look back at what did you do and how did you go after it and how did that feel? The thing I thought is like, oh man, like Madison's got to get great at rejection because otherwise you'll just sit there and be a spectator. But you get in it, you get in the weeds.
I don't want to be a spectator in my own life.
Yeah, you get hurt, right? You're willing to, all right, this is good. This is exciting.
Put yourself out there.
All right. Yes. I mean, it's hard, especially with what you're all talking about. There's so many people who want the same dream. And I just want to also mention, like, I believe wholeheartedly that if you want it, you can get it. Like, I totally believe it's there. Like, and it's so exciting to be able to meet you at this point so that when it does, it will be like, it's amazing. It will. And it can happen. Chandler. So I want to know your dream. All right. You've had plenty of time to think about it. You might have even changed your dream. You might have come up with a new dream by now. What's your dream, Chandler?
I'm a musical theater person. I did theater for a while, but that would actually be so fun. But my dream at this point is I actually want to somehow like seal the life of my professors because it's like the way to go. So I want to end up getting my doctorate in either music ed or saxophone performance and then teach a studio at a college while I still perform in orchestras or like ensembles or pits, just like any way that I possibly can.
Yeah. So you love playing and teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot more simple than everybody else, but
Well, no, I mean, you said you just love, I noticed, and there's pictures that we have with these conversations, and you love your saxophone. Like it seems like it's just something, like I got the sense that this is just a part of this person. Like
yeah.
it's almost like your arm.
Yeah, I actually recorded something and sent it out to my stepmom. I recorded a song called Earth Song by Frank DeKelly for a saxophone quartet. And it was put together myself playing all four parts. So yeah, I like to put as much pride towards saxophone as I can.
Chandler, can you do us a big favor? Because I like to include links with these. And if there's a video or something on Spotify or a place to be able to hear something and be able to see that, is that something that you can share with us?
Sure. I mean, if you really want to see it.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I would love that because I'm excited to see you do the thing that you're so passionate about. Anything that you like, any show you'd want to play in, any pit you'd want to be in, that would be like the coolest part.
As of right now, I've only played in 2 pits every other time I was on stage. The pit that I'd really enjoy to play again is Drowsy Chaperone. The Barry sax part is a blast.
Yeah, cool. That would be fun. Awesome. Well, it's great to hear that you all have dreams. I'm excited to hear where it goes. And seriously, like legit, if you want to come back, if like we want to circle back, um, we could set a date for this is 20. We're recording this 2020. I mean, we could like do a check-in at 2027 and just see, which should be cool because you get to see where you are at like 19 versus where you are at 26. And we could just talk about like all of the amazing things that happened because it'll be interesting. And Haven, we'll make sure we coordinate the time for you in Germany.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll make this work. So I want people to get a sense of who you are and where you come from because you are all from really interesting places. You're from Minnesota and Texas, Michigan, Woodstock, Illinois, Chandler. We all know Woodstock is the tourist capital of Western Illinois. Where's Woodstock again?
Northwest of Chicago.
Northwest. I'm from Chicago. I'm from the suburbs. So like I have no business saying anything but wonderful things. Woodstock's wonderful, but I would love for you to do this. I would love for you to take us to Woodstock High School. Okay, we're walking around the halls. Okay, and we see high school Chandler. Maybe sophomore high school Chandler, freshman. Who knows? You could pick whichever Chandler you would like to be. And for those who are watching and listening, it's helpful to understand, who were you? Were you a really shy guy? Were you someone who was like, star football player, incredibly popular, just prom king, homecoming king? Or were you a little bit quieter, laid back? And just so give us the most stereotypical description of high school Chandler. So tell us, who's high school Chandler?
High school Chandler had no study hall. Everything he did was music oriented because that's where he wanted to go. Every morning I'd start out in the band room and jazz band, and I'd always have this blue polo that had our band logo on it, and it's like embroidered. And every time somebody saw blue, they're like, "Oh, there's Chandler," or like, and then like during passing periods or anything, I'm walking up the hall, I'm walking around the corner, and there's my math teacher, there's the choir director, and it's like, "Mr. Joswiak, Miss Vigino, how's it going?" And I'm talking to them at the same time because they're close, and then I join the conversation, and people walking by are just like, "Hey, Chandler," I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And then our principal he typically walks by every day. Dr. Valachi would walk by, "Chandler, how's it going?" We'd shake hands, it'd be a firm handshake, we'd smile, and we'd just chat and be like, "All right, I'll go to class." And it'd honestly be the same routine every passing period, just with different teachers and different people. But every time you'd find me, the only free time I had was lunch. People would ask, "Where are you going to be?" "I'll be in the band room if you want to catch me."
Right. And that was where you lived. And
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And you loved your teachers, or at least had a relationship. And you were saying before, even now, like you just love that life and those people. That's awesome. I want to understand, and we'll get back to this, how you chose Roosevelt to continue to pursue your passion in music and why that was the best fit. But thanks for sharing that. It's really helpful. Haven. So let's go to, is it Mazeppa?
Yep.
Mazeppa, Minnesota.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know a lot of Minnesota, but where's Mazeppa?
Mazeppa is like 30 minutes from Rochester.
Okay.
And there's like 800 people. It's a really tiny, tiny town.
Okay, cool. All right. But do you have a Minnesota accent? Do you have that?
I've been told that I do. And I also call it hot dish instead of casserole, which is apparently not okay.
Not a hot, it's a casserole.
Back to me.
It's also duck, duck, gray duck. That is my piece. It
Duck,
is
duck, gray duck. I don't even know what that is.
You know the
Duck,
game
duck,
Duck, Duck, Goose?
Duck, duck, goose.
We always did duck, duck, gray duck.
Oh, that is something I would have never known. That is fascinating. I'm always learning things. So from Mazeppa, so you were at Mazeppa High School, or it says here you were homeschooled for a couple years, and then you went to community and technical college, so you never really had a high school experience. Tell me about you. So I would say homeschooled Haven, and just who you were from 14 to 18.
Okay, yeah. So I was homeschooled my entire life until me having to think junior year.
Okay.
And then my junior and senior year, I went to a community college in Rochester. Um, and it was actually such a good experience for me because I basically got all the freedom to explore what I wanted to do, which was music. I was in like 4 choirs. I went on a few tours to like Sweden, and we also went to Finland. And so I got all this freedom with being in like college when I was in high school, and I also got a degree out of it. So I already have a college degree when I turned 18. So that was just, I really, really am glad that my parents pushed me to do that.
So were you social? Did you have friends? Were you involved? Were you just immersed in your performance? So give me a sense of like just emotionally and socially who you were.
I had a few close friends, but I was very serious in high school. I like to think I've lightened up a little bit, but I was very serious in high school, and pretty much my last 3 years of high school was strictly just like music lessons, college applications, like the ACT,
Yeah.
auditions. So yeah.
Interesting. And what's so fascinating is being homeschooled and being from a town of 800 and then going to the third largest city in the country and living downtown and being independent. I imagine that was a huge transition for you.
Yes.
Right. So when we circle back, I want to hear about that. I want to hear how you chose Roosevelt, but please make sure to include how you were able to adjust to being in such an urban environment and dealing with that change. Because I think there's a lot of people a lot of students I've talked to um, who come from small towns and they want to get out. They're like, I want to get the hell out of here. But then once they get the hell out of there, they're like, I miss this place and I want to go home. I mean, it happens all the time. I'm curious to hear if that's something that happened to you as well. Okay. Madison, take us to Grand Rapids, Michigan, home of Amway,
Yeah.
right? The Amway, because I've been to the Amway Grand.
Yes, that's the hotel downtown. I drove
Yes.
past like the actual Amway every day on my way to school.
It's amazing that we have that in common, that I know that, and you drove by Amway. And you went to Forest Hills Eastern High School. So give us a description of who Madison was. Tell me about high school Madison.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, everyone else was giving their answers. I was trying to like craft an answer, and there's no way I'm gonna do that. So, high school Madison. Well, I got to that high school my sophomore year of high school because we moved after my freshman year. So there's like two versions. There's the sophomore and junior year, and then the senior year Madison. Sophomore and junior year Madison was terrified of everybody. Like, was so quiet, just went to classes and home and to dance and she did do theater. She started doing theater her sophomore year, but like wasn't all too involved. I don't know. I was just like the sophomore that was like, I love theater, you know? And then like senior year Madison was like, I don't know. I decided at the beginning of my senior year, I was like, I want to go for musical theater. So I was in both the school choir and the extracurricular choir that I could do at my school. I did all of the shows. I choreographed. I was the dance captain. So like did that after school. And then during school, I was like, but then I was also the one, like the kid that was like scared of everyone, yet constantly getting yelled at to shut up because I was so loud. So like, I don't know how that works out, but it does.
Yeah, it's interesting because now you're an RA
Mhm.
and you are totally out there, right? Like you're in it. And
Yep.
you're not shy and afraid. Or maybe you're
Uh,
shy and afraid, but just pretend not to be.
uh, yeah, a little bit of that. It's gotten a lot better. But yeah, there's still like it's like weird, like being an RA because it's like people my age or older, and then I'm like, hey, don't do that. So,
Right.
um,
That'll be
but
interesting.
yeah,
You're an RA, and then Chandler, are you also an RA?
Oh.
No? You said that like did you want to be? Did I hit a really soft spot?
Yeah.
You tried to.
I tried.
Oh, I'm sorry to bring that up.
It's okay. I got an orientation leader position out of it, so that's okay.
That's great. What can you share the story? Because I love rejection, and you seem to be a very confident individual, and you got something great out of it. So are you comfortable sharing that?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, so last year I had a really cool RA. He's an RA this year again. We call his name's Michael Kirby, but we call him RA Kirby. And like I asked him like what the deal was, like what it entailed. He's like, yeah, it's pretty cool, like blah blah blah. Here's this, and then they came out with the meeting date of like the information on what the jobs entailed because they were interviewing for both the RA position and the orientation leader position. And then so I put down I was okay getting any of the positions because, just having a standout position like that would have been cool either way in the university. Of course, I was shooting for the big position because big boy on campus gotta have a good time, right? But I ended up getting the rejection on that, but being offered the orientation leader position. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'll be big boy on campus for a week, have a blast, and then I'll be able to tone it down a little bit.
Right. And you did that. And how was that experience?
It was a good time. It was all virtual, so it was a little different,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
was still something that we were able to make the best out of what we had.
Do you know the person who you interviewed to get that position? Are you still friendly with that person?
I don't exactly remember who I interviewed. They were from Robert Morris before we merged with them.
Okay.
And then there was also the second person. He was an RA at the time. His name was Kyle. He's not here anymore, but that's okay.
Well, I'm just thinking that you're a sophomore, right?
Yeah.
So you've got 2 more years, right?
Hmm.
So you could be an RA next year.
Yeah. Next year, if I get accepted, would be my only year I'd be able to do it.
Yeah, which would be great. But the fact that you try again, I always think that the people who try again have such a better shot because you have that relationship and you seem like, I mean, you're going to be either a professor or, teaching these. I mean, you're going to be in this role anyway. So you might as well start now. So anyway, thanks for sharing that. I love just the honest parts of this. I mean, sometimes you get exactly what you want, sometimes you don't, but sometimes you get something even better. And I always believe that that's what happens eventually. Sené, so you are from Round Rock, Texas, and you went to Cedar Ridge High School. Tell us where Round Rock, Texas is and what life was like for you at Cedar Ridge High School. Who is High School Sené?
Okay, so Round Rock High School, or Round Rock, Texas is a little, I think we're a town in Texas. We are named after a round rock. I was kind of, if I'm honest, I was kind of disappointed when I finally saw the rock. It's not that big, but and either way, I'm like 30 minutes out from Austin, and Cedar Ridge High School, like high school Sené. I would literally unpopular theater nerd. I did nothing but theater. We had 4 extracurricular classes, like extracurricular spaces, and I also took sign language 3 years of high school. So I would take my core classes over the summer so that I had space to take 4 theater classes as well as ASL. I did school and I did theater, and that was it. And that was all that I did. So I was putting in theater at school. And then after school, I was always in the shows and the big musicals. And then come senior year, well, because junior year, I auditioned for all of the outside of school extra like the pre-professional programs and the training programs. And I actually did not get into any junior year. So I trained really hard junior year, and then senior year, I was accepted into like the Zach Theater pre-professional company and the Long Center for the Performing Arts Select Ensemble. So then it was literally school all day. You leave school, you go to rehearsal in Austin, and that was during the week. And then PPC was on Sundays, and then Saturdays was also Select Ensemble. So it was literally school rehearsal, school rehearsal, school rehearsal,
Yeah.
school rehearsal, and just theater.
That's so interesting that you took the classes over the summer. I've never heard of someone doing that so that they can focus on the things they really like doing. And you could do that in your high school where you could do that so that you could immerse yourself. And then you auditioned and you got rejected. And this rejection theme for this conversation, I think it's so appropriate, especially being a performer. And, I'm a performer. I'm always putting myself out there. I mean, this is in a way, I don't want this to be a performance, but it's like, we're recording something and I want it to go well. So I feel you with that. When you got rejected your junior year, that could be pretty devastating. How were you able to recover after being knocked down by all of these dream places?
So if I'm completely honest, because when I got the actual physical rejection, my main focus was the Zach Theater pre-professional company, because like in the Austin area, that's kind of like, if you're serious about theater, that's what you do. And like you pay tuition and like it's conservatory style training. And I was with some friends and they got the email that they got it and I didn't get an email. And I was like, oh, it's fine, because I was like working. I was actually fundraising to go on a school trip. And I remember I got home and so dramatic, closed the door, leaned against the door, sobbed the whole way to the floor, just laid on the ground crying. And I think that it's important to have that moment where you're sobbing on the ground and you're like, I worked so hard for this and I'm not getting to see the fruition. And then I remember getting the second rejection from the Select Ensemble. And then I really out on the floor crying. And then I had my little moment and I was like, Sené, tougher things in your life have happened to you and tougher things will happen. And you've gotten through all of those things and you're going to get through this too. And I got back up and I danced harder and I took voice lessons and I really zeroed in on my acting and I worked really, really hard and I made connections. I always went to like different education outreach programs that they had. And I was like, I really have to, if it's what I really want, then I'm going to have to put the work in. And I did. And it paid off.
Yeah, I think it's great to get beat up in high school emotionally. To a degree where like, you just get tougher because then, it's not going to get easier, but you can get better at handling just the roller coaster. When you were at your low with this and questioning yourself, who were the people who helped you to remind yourself that, Sené, you're talented, you are interesting, you're worthy, you're deserving, and don't let this keep you from continuing on this path?
So it wasn't really like a person. I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. And so I had that moment with myself where I was like, God has a bigger plan for me. And if this is not his plan right now, then I'm just going to have to trust him in that, because my life has worked out thus far, even when I feel like something is a fatal blow. So I have to, I trust. Yeah.
But it always works out. And I think that that's just something that everyone can take away. Like, it's always okay. Like, somehow it's always okay, right? Would you all agree? Like, it works out. And even if it's difficult at times, it's okay. I'm really curious to know, as a performer, how did you all end up at Roosevelt University? And what was that process? Did you have to audition for other types of programs? Do you even need to audition to be invited to be part of this program? So walk us through that process of going from high school to landing here at Roosevelt. And Madison, why don't you start and take us on that journey?
Oh boy. So honestly, I kind of flew by the seat of my pants a little bit when it came to applying to colleges and auditioning, because I knew I wanted to go into theater, but sadly, back home in Grand Rapids, we don't have stuff like the awesome programs that Sené had. So I kind of was like trying to figure things out as I went kind of thing. But basically how I found Roosevelt was someone recommended it to me because they knew that they had a dance emphasis program, and they knew that I am dancer first, I guess. And so I looked into it, and I saw that they had this program that still trained you to be a musical theater actress, but with way more dance classes and dance training than most other musical theater programs. So that immediately put it on my radar. So then I did the application for the college itself. And then for, I believe, all conservatory programs, you do have to audition. So I had to sign up for the audition, which was in February of 2019, yes, during what's called like Unifieds. So then once I got like the actual college application and everything signed in, it was just work, train all the way up until February. So during that time, you prep your audition material, you work with your voice teacher, you take your dance classes, all of those fun things. So then I came to Chicago with my mom, and I did the Roosevelt audition. It was a dance call, and then I had to go in and sing. I can't remember if I did a monologue or not, but yeah. So the dance call was super fun, had a great time. And during that dance call, I was like, first of all, like, I'm being challenged like already, and this is just the audition. But also I had so much fun. The energy in the room was so good. The students that they had helping were so nice and helpful. And then the person running the audition was just very, her name's Tammy Mater. I love her. She's one of my favorite teachers. But was just very like open and honest with us when we were doing like the Q&A part and everything. So I just got like a really good vibe, I guess, from the program. I went to go do my singing audition. It went well-ish, I guess. I did walk out and was like, I don't think I'm ever getting in here, because I heard people through the walls. And I was like, there is no way I would ever be accepted here. And then you wait. So I waited until May, I believe, of my senior year. So everybody at my high school has already like got their college decisions going. They're all wearing their school stuff to like their college gear to school and everything. And I'm still waiting. And then I got the acceptance email, and I think I cried. I was like I was stunned, because also like it's Chicago, it's dancing, and it's also theater, and it was everything that I was like, this is crazy. But yeah, that's just kind of how I.
Oh, that's exciting. Were there other schools that you were considering?
Yes. So for a musical theater major, I actually didn't audition for as many as most. Sené can definitely attest to that. I believe I only auditioned for 9 schools in total. Got rejected from 6, accepted into 3. And then between those 3, I deliberated and then eventually made the decision to.
Can you share the other schools that were that you got accepted to, and how did you make your decision to choose Roosevelt?
Yeah. So I got accepted into Roosevelt, Oakland University, which is in Michigan, and also Western Michigan University, which is also in Michigan. And then technically, I don't really count it, got into the BA program of Millikan, which I believe is in Indiana. But I don't really count that because I wasn't going for the BA. But basically what it came down to, in all honesty, I'm all one for transparency, was finances, and then which was going to put me in a position where it'd be most easily accessible for me to pursue what I would like to. And I believe that both Oakland and Western are perfectly good schools, but they're also in the middle of
You said nowhere?
Kalamazoo, Michigan, and
Yeah.
Oakland, Michigan, which is right outside of Flint.
Yeah.
So like there's just not a lot of arts that is just occurring. There's not a lot of things coming through, stuff like that. Very limited resources. So then I take a look at Chicago, and it was everything, and so much more than I could ever access and use and stuff like that.
And they gave you a lot of money?
I am on scholarship, yes, but with the RA position, that's how I'm also able to come here. But and it really unfortunately with colleges nowadays, it really comes down to who gives you a scholarship, who doesn't, and how much debt you can afford to go into.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and it's a part that people don't talk about. So, money is a real big issue, and it's something that people have to consider, and especially if you are going into the arts, where it's a little unpredictable in terms of what your income will be, understanding what type of debt you're taking and how you're going to pay that, and what it costs each month once you graduate are really important factors. So, I think that's especially as artists. I believe artists can be incredibly successful and find lots of different ways to take care of themselves. You don't need to be a starving artist, but in terms of people who are recruiting you once you graduate, that could be questionable. So that all makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that. It's interesting to hear the audition process, and it's so many layers. Sené, can you walk us through how you ended up at Roosevelt?
Yes. So I started prepping for college auditions my freshman year of high school. Just planning out and listing colleges.
You said freshman year of high school?
Yes, freshman year of high school.
That's just who you are.
Well, it's honestly, maybe it's just a Texas thing, but a lot of kids where I'm from, freshman or sophomore years when you start prepping, because junior year is when you have to start recording your pre-screens and like picking materials and like things like that. So, I wanted a little bit of head start. So I started freshman year, but I was really, in terms of Texas, like 1 year ahead. So I started prepping freshman year, and I made my freshman year college list. And that list was 33 colleges long, and then it kept growing and changing and growing and changing. And like I said, I was auditioning for like pre-professional like training programs and things like that. And then also I was blessed to go to a really amazing high school. I had a lot of amazing teachers, so I also got training that way. So then come senior year, I recorded my pre-screens, I got those in, and I was in the ZAC pre-professional company, which is like a tuition-based conservatory style training company. So I got training that way. And also through that, they are partnered with a college audition coach. Her name is Moo. That's what we call her. And the college audition service is called College Audition Coach. And so she allowed the students of the ZAC Theater pre-professional company to come and audition at her private auditions called Moonifieds. And that is in Dallas, and it takes place over a 4-day weekend. And what I really loved about that was that, I didn't have to pay for coaching with Moo, which it's very expensive. So I was very grateful for that, because she let the ZAC PPC kids come and audition. And then she ended up very graciously scholarshiping me for the Moonifieds portion of the trip. And so I just got to go, and I'm very grateful to her for that. And her team takes care of everything, which is completely like unheard of in the musical theater, like college audition process. So they have 25 schools there. Your auditions take place over the course of 3 days. And because the people in charge work out everything, you can audition for as many as 25 schools or as few schools as you like. And a lot of schools there, they waive audition fees, they waive pre-screen fees, application fees. So it was really lovely. I did 17 auditions in those 3 days. I later found out that I did those auditions with strep throat, so that was super fun. But I got a couple of acceptances out of that, a couple of pre-screen passes. And so I passed a pre-screen for Oklahoma University, which is a pretty prestigious program. And so those callbacks were going to take place in Chicago Unifieds. So I booked a bunch of other auditions, and a girl from my high school who went to high school with me actually attended Roosevelt as a musical theater dance emphasis major. So, and Roosevelt at the time did not have a pre-screen. So I was like, this is beautiful. This is perfect. And I signed up to audition. At Unified, I did 7 auditions, 4 scheduled and 3 walk-ins. And one was for Roosevelt. And I remember sitting in the room, like I did my dance audition and then we sat in the room for the info session. And I remember him, or the person leading the info session, going, and at this school, we really care about like social justice, like it is like, and social justice is obviously something that's very important to me. And I remember literally all of my friends in their seats turned around to look at me. And I was like, okay, yes, you all, like, I'm in love with the school, we get it. And I went on a tour, and honestly, I saw the dorm facilities and I was like, okay, no, like this is my dream school. And so I did 24 auditions in total. And then I had to wait a little bit. And then I ended up getting 5 acceptances, 2 waitlist spots, and then the rest rejections.
But you said you got 5 acceptances and 2 waitlists. And are you comfortable sharing where you were accepted and how you decided to go with Roosevelt?
Yes. So I was accepted into the Texas State acting program, which I was so grateful. That's a very prestigious program. I was accepted to Roosevelt as a musical theater major. I was accepted to Lynn University as a musical theater major. I was accepted to Madison University, and I was accepted to, I'm forgetting a program. I'm forgetting somewhere.
That's okay.
It might be Malloy, but like Malloy Cap 21, but yes.
And then how did Roosevelt win?
I was waiting on them, and then I vividly remember their acceptances came out on the Ides of March, because it was the Ides of March, and I was like, really, y'all, the Ides of March? But no, I was waiting on them, and because I mean they were my dream school, and I got it, and it was also a money thing, because I mean they were my dream school, but college is expensive. And then when they came back with my scholarship, I committed.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're a first-gen student, right?
Yes, I'm a first-generation college student.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different factors there, and it's awesome that you got that. And it's really interesting to hear. If there's anybody who is interested in pursuing a career in the arts or wants to go to a college or university and follow your path, are you comfortable with people reaching out and asking you, about Unifieds and the Chicago Unifieds? And, there's just so many different aspects. I know Madison, you as well, went through that. And I imagine Haven, you probably have a lot of insight. All of you have insight. So if there's anybody who's watching and really wants to understand how to go through that process, or if you happen to even be in Texas, and the resources Sené mentioned are ones where you're like, oh, me. And as a first-gen student, having people offer scholarships, it sounds like you needed that help and people were willing to give it to you. And you asked for that. Was it hard to ask for help, or is it just easy for you to share that you need it?
I think I'm terrified. I'm actually terrified of asking anyone for anything, but I think it gets to a point, because I mean, even like the Zach Theater Pre-Professional company it's a tuition-based company. And I mean, tuition is expensive. And so I'm even going into that. And I think there came a point where I realized that if this was what I wanted to do, and if I was this close and all that was in the way was money, I was going to have to ask, or else live with not being able to do that. And so, I mean, when it comes to that point where the only thing between you and like, because in my mind, I just kept changing the barrier. I was like, the only thing between me and my college degree and being the first person ever in my family to graduate college is me writing this scholarship essay, is me reaching out to this person and asking if they would waive an application fee, if this person would scholarship me for this. And what was so surprising was that people are so open and willing to help. And it really did take, I mean, I auditioned for 24 colleges. It really did take a village to get me there. Application fees are expensive. And on top of that, some schools have pre-screen fees and audition fees, and you have to travel. I had to get all the way out to Chicago. That's airfare, food, hotel, just so many things. And just, I was amazed at the kindness that people showed me. When I asked, sometimes people could tell that like, I really was struggling, and they would offer. And I think that that's really beautiful. But I mean, yeah, there it definitely comes to a point where you're like, the only thing between me and my dreams is this sum of money right here, and I'm gonna have to find a way to get it.
Yeah,
And
you got it, and you asked, and people are amazing. I think it's really beautiful. It's magic when you ask, and it's always amazing to see how people respond. And I think that so many people don't ask because they're too afraid to ask. And I love that you share this and that you have asked, and great things continue to happen. So thanks for sharing that. Haven, I want to understand how you ended up at Roosevelt University. You took a non-traditional route, homeschooling, going to community college, didn't really have that traditional high school career, but again, you trained really hard. So how did Roosevelt become the school that was on your radar from Mazeppa, Minnesota?
So I started working when freshman year of high school right away, because I knew that I was going to have to pay like to go to college auditions and stuff like that. So I started working immediately. And then when it finally came time to audition for colleges, I auditioned at 8 schools. And I, tried to smush as many into one trip as I could. So I would take trips and then try to make it as cheap as possible. And I ended up getting accepted to 7 of the 8 that I auditioned at. Um, and so coming to Roosevelt, really Roosevelt, to be completely honest, was not at the top of my radar when I auditioned at it at all. Um, but when I saw the faculty at my audition and I got to talk to the faculty, they really changed my view on Roosevelt. So it became one of my top schools really fast, mostly because of the faculty.
What
Um,
did the faculty say, and was there anyone that stood out that really made you think twice?
so my voice teacher now, Judith Haddon, really was the person who made me want to come here. She reached out to me and she just went out of her way to make sure that I felt welcomed at Roosevelt. And she ended up helping me find more scholarship. And so scholarship was a huge part of it. But the fact that I felt wanted at this university, I think that's a huge part when you're picking schools, to not just go where you get in, but to go where you feel like you will fit and like they want you there as a valuable addition to their school.
Yeah, I think that what you hit on is so important, and I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about that. To go to a place where you feel wanted, as opposed to a place where you want to go so badly, and then once you get in, there isn't really a person or a place. You're just there because you're there. But when you go to a place where you're really wanted and have support, it changes the whole dynamic. So once you committed to Roosevelt, was Judith still there for you? Is Judith still in your corner?
Yes, Judy is she's honestly probably my biggest fan. I love her so much. She's my voice teacher and she is just a really special lady and she is just a huge support system that I've always needed and I can always fall back on her. So,
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you light up when you talk about her. Coming from a small town in Minnesota and then being in a high rise residential hall in the middle of Chicago, that's a huge transition. And I imagine that there were some challenges, and I'm really curious to know, how was your transition, and was it easy? Was it hard for you? Did you question your decision at any time and think maybe I need to go closer to home? Tell me a little bit about that.
yeah, I think I don't want to speak for everyone, but I feel like coming to college is always a big transition no matter where you go. And coming to Chicago, I think actually helped my college transition because I was in a place that I loved so much. I'm still just so in awe of Chicago. It is so cool. There's always something new and exciting to do. There's so many places to explore. So I really think that helped me with my college transition. And coming from a small town, it just is so cool to see all the culture and everything. Like everyone here is so different. And I think that's so cool. And I've got to learn so much about city life and everything. City life, like I lived in the boondocks, but
I mean,
um,
you're in and out your window. You can see, like, you're in it. And when you walk out your building,
yeah.
you're in it. I'm from Chicago. spent 20 years living downtown, and it's there's a lot going on there. Did you ever get homesick? Did you ever, you know, have a tough day? You sound very strong, and like you had a seamless transition. Is that true? I mean, sometimes it happens, but
Oh, I did not have a seamless transition at all.
right.
Oh, I'm gonna just get real because
Okay,
might as
thank you.
well. But
Let's
my
just put it out
freshman
there.
year, Chandler knows. My freshman year was really, really, really rough for me. I came to school and I felt ready for school because I had gone to a community college, so I really felt like I got it. I was like, I got this in the bag. I've already been at college. And college had other ideas. So the biggest part about it was for me was classes. It is a huge class load, and kind of I have problems with being a perfectionist, and so I came from like straight A's, like I'd never had a B in my life, to college where that is not the case at all. And so that just really like blindsided me. And so I really had to do some soul searching freshman year, but it was not a seamless transition at all. And I think I kind of want to normalize that, if that makes sense, because I feel
Yeah,
like I asked a lot of people about college and they were just like, oh, I love it. It's amazing. Like they just really sugarcoated college. And I feel like a lot of people don't talk about how hard it is to be away from home, to live on your own, and to also just take on that huge class load, especially in the performing arts.
yeah. I want to hear more later. I'm going to ask you to share your most uncomfortable experience and how you got through it. So if you could just go a couple layers deeper, because I'm so there with you. I mean, life's uncomfortable. College is, the college part's important, but more so than anything, you have to deal with all of this discomfort and new issues. Living with someone. You probably lived with someone, right? Did you
I
live?
actually didn't live with
Oh,
someone.
so that's even so now you're isolated,
Yeah.
and you're dealing with all of this discomfort, and you are questioning yourself and your abilities because you're not doing what you used to do, and you're in a place far away from home, and that's just really, it doesn't matter who you are. That is really hard, and so many students don't manage that, and I love that we can talk about that because hopefully they'll see this and be like, oh yeah, all right, I'm just like Haven, I can get through it. Because look at you, like you're so damn happy now, right? Right?
The tr-
Like you're happy.
I try my best. I'd like to think that I have gotten a lot better at failure, if that makes any sense.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
I've
the
just gotten
dropout
to like
threats
the
come too
rejection.
much.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be. So Chandler, we didn't forget about you. Okay, I've had my eye on you. I've been waiting. All right. So Chandler, I want to know, and I want to just give Woodstock a shout out, because Woodstock, Illinois is a great place. I mean, I feel if I did any harm, Woodstock's great. Woodstock, I mean, I love Woodstock, right? You love Woodstock. Woodstock was good to you, right?
We hold on to the Groundhog Day movie, Too Strong, and Dick Tracy.
Oh, that's where Groundhog. I drove by. You know what? Woodstock is actually that. It's so cool. I forget where we were going, but we pulled off and then we went to the square, and there was
Yep,
like a
yep.
festival and stuff. And it's funny you mentioned Groundhog Day, because when you were talking about your high school experience, it sounded like Groundhog Day, where like every day you're walking by, you see the teachers. Like I was actually visualizing Groundhog Day. That's funny. Thanks for.
Yeah, we hold on to Bill Murray strongly to our hearts, even though he's only been there twice.
Yeah, that's great. So, how did you end up choosing Roosevelt University, Chandler? Give me the quick story.
So, towards the end of my senior year is when I actually started, getting heavy into saxophone. So, unlike everybody else here who had been taking lessons or training and doing everything that they're doing, I started taking lessons 6 months before any auditions happened with the previous Woodstock High School director. His name's Cody Halberstadt. I was taking lessons with him, and he was like, "Well, where are you looking?" I was like, looking at DePaul, and I'm looking at U of I." He's like, "Anywhere else?" I'm like, "No, not really." He's like, "What about Roosevelt?" I said, "What's at Roosevelt?" He said, "One of my dearest friends, Michael Weiss Holmes. He's the saxophonist for the CSO." So I was like, oh yeah, of course, that's your best friend, whatever. So I
Do
put
you
that
know who
on my
that was?
list.
Did you know who that sax player
I had
was?
no idea that the CSO had a full-time saxophonist.
That's so cool.
And so um, I put that on my radar, and then what I ended up doing was I came to Chicago twice for each of the auditions. I auditioned at DePaul, and then I auditioned at Roosevelt. It was they were both the same. I played the same piece. They asked me to do a couple scales, whatever. And then with U of I, I finished filling out everything, but then I sort of ghosted my audition. I just didn't go. So I feel like Deborah Wickmeyer, if you're watching this, I'm sorry.
What happened? Why didn't you go, man?
Because I, I was gonna go to do the audition. My dad's like, we're not driving down to U of I. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do a recording. And the recording was due in 2 days. I was like, I can't schedule a recording in 2 days. So I ended up not doing any of that for them.
It was
But I came
transportation, though. So, like, you couldn't get down there because of transportation.
right, but
You didn't have anyone to
it was
get-
my fault because I didn't communicate with her at all. So
okay.
it's just that's why I'm apologizing to her if
That's so
she's
nice.
watching this.
Right.
Huh?
So you feel bad that you just ghosted this person.
I ghosted such an amazing lady. Deborah Rickmeyer is one of the best saxophonists like in the world, and I just ghosted her.
Right. I wonder if you could send her a note even now. You just be like, we were having this conversation. I was thinking that I owe you a note, and it's something that I've kept with me, and I just have so much respect for you. And at that point, it was just, I don't know. I don't know if you're up for that. You don't have
I've
to.
seen her so many times since then. I don't think she cares.
Oh, do you think she forgot about you?
She's like, who
No,
is Chandler?
yeah, right. No, so I went to what's called NASA. It's the North American Saxophone Association. That happened in Arizona this year. So the saxophone studio went down there, and I saw her. I was like, "Hey, Deborah." She's like, "Oh, hey, Chandler. How's it going?" I was like,
You guys don't talk about it. It's just like an unspoken thing that you have, like that.
Yeah,
You blew
yeah.
it off, but nobody talks about it.
"No, nobody talks."
You're really
about it.
good, right? Like you're really like she knows your abilities.
I don't. I hope she thinks I'm
It'd
good.
be fun to talk about that. I'd be curious to hear that. I don't know. Anyway, this is not like an advice session. You're not looking for advice, but you seem like you feel bad. That's why. I could sense that you're not comfortable with that.
I just want her to think I'm a better person than pushed out to be, because I actually am looking at U of I eventually for one of the programs that I'll go to, but we'll see.
Right. Right. Well, you'll show up. But what if she
Yeah.
ghosts you?
Oh, that'd be
Right. You show up and she's like, you're like, where, I haven't.
holding a 4-year grudge. Oh, that would be the most legendary thing I've ever seen in my
Then it'd
life.
then it'd be evened out.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, we got sidetracked, but thanks for sharing that, Chandler. So you did your auditions, and then an advice for other people is to send a note if you missed the audition to like clear it so you don't have to keep it next year. Because this is a to be continued story. There's another chapter to this. We'll have to hear more. Like I think you two will have a conversation about this at some point. Maybe you'll just laugh. It'll be funny. But anyway,
Probably.
so how did you pick Roosevelt? How did you get to this decision?
So it actually came between the two audition processes. So obviously it's going to come down to financials and what they could offer me. Roosevelt actually offered me less than DePaul did. But then when I met the professor, so it's I don't know if it's Jeremy. I think it's Ruth Ralph is how you say his last name. I met him at a lesson for like a tour day that I went to. Just didn't click. But when I met Michael, Dr. Weiss Holmes, like, oh my God. Like Haven said, it was just you're wanted, and he just wanted to get the work. He wanted to make you as best you can. And the difference between these two individuals was Dr. Weiss Holmes didn't want to make a carbon copy of himself. He wanted to make you as a prospering individual, like with your own abilities, where I felt more of I'm going to become Jeremy as a saxophonist instead of myself. So
Yeah.
instead of giving me a toolbox and saying, here, fix this, it's just like, here I am, watch my videos, or like, be like me, go.
Yeah, and you really want to be able to be free to express yourself. That's your
Yeah.
that's your thing.
And then I got very lucky. I reached out to one of the financial people here at Roosevelt, and they're like, okay, we'll match it. So
Oh, that's great. So tell me, you actually told them about your other offer, or you told them that it was too expensive, and they said, "Hold on one second."
yeah, so I contacted his name's Ben Kennis. He's not here any longer, but I contacted him and I said, hey, DePaul offered me this much, but you guys offered me a different amount. Can you do something? And he's like, let me get back to you. And I heard back from 2 days later. He's like, okay, I'll match it.
That's
We
awesome.
want you. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand that if you get different offers before you're like, oh, that's out of my league and I can't do that, is to at least let the other people know. Because I know, Sené, we were talking about, people find money, and the fact that that happened is so cool. So that's great. You seem like you're really happy here, and you all seem like you're really aligned with your passion and really exploring that, which is a really exciting thing to see. Do you find at Roosevelt a lot of people are really aligned with their passion, or do people tend to be pretty happy, and what's just the general vibe?
We're all in the like Chicago Conservatory or the Chicago College of Performing Arts, and because it's a conservatory, I think that a lot of people are like very like focused on like what they want to do, just because I mean when you're going to a conservatory, like you barely take other classes. I think we all take like one general education class a semester, so I mean it has to be what you really want to do to even audition.
So it's a lot of people who are really focused, have really identified what they want. What happens if you're in it and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't dig this. This just isn't my thing anymore. And you want to change into a different school, or, does that ever happen to people?
I didn't switch like schools or anything, but I started off at Roosevelt as a musical theater major. And there actually is a giant difference between the musical theater and the musical theater dance emphasis programs. And I realized I was like, the musical theater program is an amazing program, but I am not happy here and I don't want to do this. And it costs too much money to pay for something that you're not happy in, that you aren't 100% all into. And I mean, I re-auditioned and got in and switched programs.
Nice. So you can switch. And I think that's also really important, that if what you want changes, then change what you're doing. And I think that it's also really scary to do that, especially when you're someone who's so focused, to be able to then give yourself permission to change your mind, which I think is really important. Madison, as a RA, which is a resident assistant, the perks are great. You also have a lot of responsibilities, but in terms of how it helps you and with room and board, can you explain that part for people who think, I can't live on campus, but maybe there's an opportunity to do that. So, what are the perks?
Yeah, so being an RA, and Haven and Sené can both attest to this because both of them are RAs as well. With being an RA at Roosevelt, at least in the Wabash building, the pay does cover your room and food, which for me is a huge, huge deal.
So for people to understand that, that's like, it could be $10,000 to $15,000. It could be a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Is that a ballpark?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe when it's all said and done, I don't want to give a wrong number here, but I want to say it's between 9 and 10.
Okay, so on the lower side, but that's for the whole year.
Yeah. Am I wrong? I see.
It's like 13.
Oh,
So it's
take it back.
Yeah. So it's amazing because people don't recognize that if you could be an RA, it's a really wonderful, not just a wonderful leadership position, but it's also something that, is a substantial amount of money that you can save.
It is, at least for me, it is kind of coming into this year. It was like because I knew that I was going to be able to afford this year of college because my room and board was covered. So I was able to be like, all right, I am solely focusing on school and being the best RA that I could possibly be. Because I know last year, like before I got the position, like I wasn't sure what my living situation was going to be for sophomore year. So my entirety of freshman year, I felt like, yes, I was going to all my classes, but I was also constantly applying to jobs and trying to do job interviews. And then the jobs were like, well, you are in a conservatory, you can't work as many hours as we need you to. So it was just like this constant cycle of like stress. And
Yeah.
so with having this job, not saying that it's not stressful, but like it alleviates that particular stress.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it's nice that you could be in the conservatory and still hold a position on campus. Um, I've got several more questions. I'm going to try not to keep you too long, but you're all just so interesting, and you have these just wonderful stories that I think so many people can be inspired by and also be really informed by as well. So, when it comes to your places at Roosevelt, the places where you do the things that give you joy, the places where you find your friends, I know that you're really involved in conservatory, but are there other organizations, are there other places where you found connection and community? And I know, Sené, just from seeing some of the information you shared, the Black Student Union, it sounds like it's a second home for you.
Yes. So before, I think now this year, the theater conservatory specifically, we have our own Black Student Union. And so, but even before that was a thing, a lot of my friendships and a lot of my connections and a lot of the people that really held me up and supported me, because I mean, just like Haven, I mean, for different reasons, but my freshman year was rough. And so a lot of the people that helped get me through and that helped support me and that helped be like, hey, everything's going to be okay, ended up being from that. And now I am actually a part of both Black student unions, both just the Roosevelt Black Student Union and the Theater Conservatory Black Student Union.
When it comes to being part of a Black Student Union, for students who aren't familiar with what that means and what that entails, maybe it's the first time they've even heard of a Black Student Union. Can you just explain what happens, how you get involved, just the relationships and value of being part of something like this?
So I come from, like, Round Rock, Texas is not very diverse, and a big part of the reason why I chose Roosevelt is we came in February, that's Black History Month. And I looked, and all over the walls, there were all of these posters for Black homecoming. And like I said, I want to open, or I want to head a musical theater program at a historically Black college or university. And that's where like Black homecoming originated. And since I didn't get into any, programs at HBCUs, that was like a huge part of like, oh my goodness, yes. And so it really, I feel, provides a community and just like a home, a place where you can look around and you know that like, it's just a different type of connection. It's like, I don't know, it's just amazing. It's like support, it's like events, different events. It's amazing. It's like support, events, everything all in one.
And people are welcoming and accepting. You just have to show up.
Yes, I remember I literally got added to a group chat and everyone was like, hello, welcome. I think they literally all had us over to like someone's house one night for dinner, like unofficially, but like it was still like everyone who was in it. And I remember, and they were like, if you need anything, like anything, let us know. And I remember I had a couple like instances freshman year where I was like, oh, this happened to me and I don't know where to go to. And like, true to their word, those were the people who were like, talk to this person in this office and tell them that I sent you because I'm this in this office, and see if they know anyone who can help you, or see if they know anything. And all you have to do, well, I just got added to like some email lists, and you just go to events, and it was honestly like life changing for me.
That's so great. And I hope everybody can find that place on campus, because I think especially when you come from somewhere that's very far away, it's not only being wanted, but also having a place where you feel that community. And it sounds like you had all of that. Haven, where are your places at Roosevelt?
So my freshman year, I really just had like a small group of friends. It was like Chandler and my friend Emma. And this year, I have found a surprising amount of community on the RA team. I
Nice.
immediately, like our first day of training with the whole RA team, this sounds so cheesy, but I was just like, these are my people. Like they just really welcomed all of the new RAs with just open arms, and we're all a community, and they're all very much like, come to us with anything, and we are here for you, like anything you need. And they're all just some of the best people that I've ever met.
That's wonderful. So being an RA, you're an RA is also you're also an RA. That's been really nice community. That's great. Chandler, where have you found your places at Roosevelt?
So last year, it was it was just like high school Chandler. I found the staff members that I got along with, and I embodied myself into their position. Our new concert coordinator at the time was Alex, so I got to know Alex a lot. Matt, Elizabeth, and Laura, they were a lot of the people that I talked to, and also, of course, my saxophone professor. But then outside of that would be the saxophone studio and a bunch of like like woodwind instruments typically, because we'd have like performances class together and all that. Um, but a lot of what I found actually was this year expanded a whole lot more because of the orientation leader team. I got to know a lot of them, and I live right next door to one of the orientation leaders from this year, so like we'll catch each other at the door and we'll talk for like a half hour, just out of hey, how's it going? And it's just like, oh, we're going good. How about you? And we just talk and
Yeah.
talk and talk, and then I'm finding more community in the Student Government Association. I was happy to be elected into the vice president position, so I'm getting to know. So the president is Lily Pribish, which I believe you talked to.
Yeah, Lily's great.
Lily is a great person, so I got
Lily's
to know
awesome.
Lily last year, and so it's nice to be in an office with her, and also getting to know all the people who applied for our senator positions. I'm getting to know them and just everybody around. So like Kayla's in the CSI office along with Emily, and we talk to them and coordinate with them whenever we need to. So it's become a lot more expansive this year than it did last year.
To the CSI office as well, and SGA, and then you've got your band. Because when I talk to students about college, it's always you have to have your three places. Places are where you sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, love, and work. So it's all those places. And I wonder, Sine, do you have a place? Is spirituality and faith, is that still something that's central to you? And do you practice that in Chicago?
Yes, and it's crazy because I really thought I wouldn't. I was like, I came from like parents waking you up at 6 a.m. because you got to get to 7:45 like church service, and I was like, when I get to college, I'm gonna be free. And it's crazy because I traveled all the way across the country, and my first thing Saturday night, I was like, do y'all go to church? Does anybody want to go to church with me? And I found my little group, and we Googled churches. We were all different denominations. So we literally Googled, we were like, let's stick in the middle. We would like Googled non-denominational churches in Chicago. And I ended up finding a church that I really love, and rain or shine, no matter how late I was up studying the day before, I ended up finding myself at City Church Chicago at 8 a.m. So not so different from 7:45 church service as I thought I would get in college, but
Right. Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. I love that. Madison, where are your places at Roosevelt?
Um, Similarly to Haven, I feel like coming because freshman year, I didn't like branch out into the university as much as I could have, I guess. Um, I kind of just stuck with the people that I had found in the conservatory, um, and didn't really try to involve myself past that. But then obviously this year, everything, the RA team is so incredibly welcoming and supportive, and we all have such a good time. Like literally the other night, there was like a group of like 7 of us that for like 3 hours sat in a dark rec room. We didn't even have the lights turned on, and we're just like laughing, like rolling on the floor, um, telling stories. Like it was so fun. Um, so yeah, through that, and then this year I have like made a point to attend as many programs as I possibly can, and through that have started to meet other students that are different majors and stuff like that. and starting to branch out a little bit and reach out throughout the.
Yeah. When you say program, what do you mean?
So the RAs and like the residence life staff put on what are called programs, which are basically events.
Like what kind?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Like what kind of, could you rattle off a few of them?
This year they've obviously looked kind of different because they've been virtual. So there have been a lot of Instagram IGTVs posted on the Res Life Instagram. I had a program for my floor where I had hot chocolate and cookies, and I just sat in the study room, and a group of my residents came, and we all sat socially distant, and just like talked for a while and just got to say hey, like stuff like that.
That's cool. And I think that the thing that's kind of a bummer about COVID and this year when we're recording this is that there is more isolation and distance. But what's also interesting is if you're a student who's interested in any of these schools, and like if you want to check out Roosevelt's Res Life Instagram, you could, like, anybody can check it out, right?
Yeah.
So like you get to see the things that are going on in the sense of community, whereas you might not be able to pick up on that as much during a regular year. That's why I think there's a lot of benefits that will end up coming through for students who are interested in exploring different schools. I am really interested to know about city life and how do you feel and how can you have like a college experience, whether it's going to parties or whether it's feeling safe or whether it's just it's a different environment being in a city than it would be being in an isolated community like in Kalamazoo, which Kalamazoo and Western are great. Like Western's a great school. And we were talking about that before. They have like really great performing, but totally different environment. So I'm curious, give me some of your tips. And everybody can do this. We could just kind of do this, just shout it out. Your tips on, having a social life and balancing, partying and just how does that happen at Roosevelt? And do you feel pressured or, how does it all go down? What do you do and what's your Saturday nights like?
Who wants to start?
I am such an old lady grandma. Like my Saturday nights are like I got my tea, I'm in my bed, I got my book. I'm not.
For real?
So don't ask me.
That's for real. That's the real story, right? It's not like you're out like raging at clubs and you're just pretending to.
No,
No, it's like legit. Okay. I just want to make sure because at first, your freshman year, I had to dig a little bit, even so. I respect that and I totally believe it. I just wanted to like push back just a tiny bit. So, but you can just chill and hang out and have an amazing Saturday night. And people do that. So that's an option, right? And it's cool. So you don't have to feel pressure to do anything that you don't want to do. And you can just kind of hang out. Anybody else? Sené? Madison?
Go.
Some of, like I said, with it being Chicago, is there's so many resources. So some of my favorite nights last year, literally the night of move-ins, my parents took me out to dinner. We'd already moved me into my dorm. They dropped me off. They were like, be safe. And I was like, okay. I walked back into the building, immediately get stopped by a group of my classmates, barely knew them, like had seen them on Instagram. And they stopped me and they were like, do you want to go to a comedy show? And I was like, what? And they were like, do you want to go to a comedy show? And I was like, and I like looked outside at my parents pulling away and I went, yeah, I would love to go to a comedy show. So literally the first night, a big group of us like took a train out to the Laugh Factory and went to a comedy show. Like last year, I got the opportunity to see the Graveyard Shift at the Goodman and the King's Speech over at Chicago Shakespeare. So some of my favorite nights were spent going to these shows and seeing the art that is created in Chicago. And also like there's so many parts of Chicago. There's Boys Town, there's Wicker Park, there's Lincoln Park, there's everywhere. And you can just hop on the CTA and go. And it's crazy.
So instead of it being like people are in a room with sticky floors and loud music, you're able to jump on the L and you're able to experience the culture and all the things that make Chicago what it is and have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like, you can't do that. It's very hard to find that in other places.
Oh yeah.
I love that. I did a lot of work with Improv Olympic um, when I was a little bit younger in the city, but like, I love that whole scene, and it's just
Yeah.
fun. What it did is it gave me a place to go and a place where I felt connected, and I didn't have to feel pressure to do any of the things that I didn't want to do. And I think that that's one of the joys of going to school in an urban environment, especially like I'm the hugest Chicago fan. So, like I'm right there. I'm right there with you. I think it's so cool. Sinead, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I did happen to be in that big group with Maddie at the Laugh Factory on move-in day last year. And I think that what's really beautiful about going to Roosevelt and like the scene of like what our Saturday nights look like, because when you go to school in a city, you get like your train card, you get your CTA pass like included in tuition. You can go anywhere at any time. Like we were at the Laugh Factory, and there are a lot of like, especially being in Chicago, like there's so many places where you can get free tickets to free shows, like she was saying. And like, yeah, some of my best Saturday nights were me trekking all the way across town, walking through an alley to get to a free show at a little theater and meeting people and talking to people and seeing cool new theater. And like literally there was one show, it was called Grey House, and we could not stop raving about it. Went 3 times, and like things like that really like hit home and that you get to do that I feel like you wouldn't get to do anywhere else because it costs money to get around.
Chandler, do you have anything to add to that?
My Saturday nights were very uneventful. I was either in my room preparing for the next week, or I was in a practice room preparing for, piano exam or something like that. My big nights were Thursday nights. Those didn't start till second semester. So like 4 of us would go to a comedy show up north. We'd go, I think it started at 9.
What theater?
I don't remember. I wish I could.
Okay.
But we'd go, and then right after we'd go to every single week, we'd go to Taco Bell. And we'd see other performers from the theater go to Taco Bell with us. We're like, hey, what's up? And they're like, and we're all just like screaming in Taco Bell, yelling at each other, just, making our own jokes.
Yeah, I love that. There's also, for people who don't know, in Chicago, there are these little like taco and burrito places that are just the most incredible places, and they're open till like 5 a.m. and they're just the best, right? And then I don't know if you ever go to Wiener Circle. I don't know what your place, like your late night food place is. What's one of your late night spots that just hits the spot?
Devil Dogs.
Yeah.
Devil Dogs.
7-Eleven is a classic.
I only like Devil Dogs for their shakes.
Yes, and onion rings.
Shakes and onion rings.
If I had to pick a place, I would go to either Chipotle, of course, or Panda Express.
Okay, so you like big chain franchise.
Those are typically like my late night go-tos. But if there's a place I could pick to go to every single day, I'd probably go to Cafecito. I would enjoy Cafecito every single day.
Cafecito. So, I want to throw this out there because there's people who don't know about Chicago, and your parents left you, Maddie. I'm going to call you Maddie now. Can I call you Maddie?
Yeah.
All right, because I heard Sinead call you Maddie, so I'll call you Maddie.
Totally works.
If you're okay.
I have no preference.
So your parents leave you, and their daughter who's in the city, big city, and they're like, stay safe. So when it comes to staying safe and being able to take care of yourself, speaking directly to those who aren't familiar with an urban campus and what it's like to go to school at Roosevelt, how do you keep yourself safe? And do you feel like it's easy to be safe, or is it hard to be safe?
I think it really, obviously anything can happen at any time, but I think most of the time it really comes down to, you just have to be smart about it. I am like a very independent person. Like when I'm back home, I go on drives late at night because I like to, and you kind of have to reel your pride back a little bit and acknowledge that if it's dark, shouldn't be like hopping on the train by yourself or anything like that. So especially like as a woman, in the world today, like you have to be aware of those things. So I feel like I was given like three pieces of advice really, by cousins of mine that have lived in Chicago, and they were like completely like beginner guides. So this is like for anyone that has never been in a big city before. They're like, if it's dark, be with a friend. If you're traveling, be with a friend. And as soon as the streets turn to numbers, maybe don't go any farther. And that's how they kind of were like, they're like starting out, don't do that. So
yeah,
in and around the area, we're in the South Loop. It is a very, in my opinion, very safe area. We're right next to the Mag Mile and everything like that. So I don't know, I've never felt unsafe in and around the Roosevelt campus.
I think that's really important. And I think for other people who have questions about what it's like to live in a city, what it's like to be safe, how to manage that, that's something that I think that if anyone has questions who's watching this or listening, are you comfortable answering any of those? I know you did your social media. Like if someone wants to know more, like, is it weird if they reach out to you, or is it really cool and comfortable?
No, I don't know. I don't want to like speak for like the rest of us, but like I feel I like being able to help people out, because there were some instances like when I was applying to colleges that I had no idea, but I didn't necessarily have anyone to reach out to. So like I'm more than willing to be like, yes, like give me your questions. Like I would love to try to help you out in any way that I can.
That's great. And Chandler, anyone can ask you?
Oh, always.
And Haven, you too?
Oh yeah. Yes.
And you too?
Yes, love to help.
Yeah, you all are very welcoming, and I can tell. But I like to just put that out there. I have a couple more questions. I'm going to wrap things up. I've gone a little bit long, but you're just all amazing. So I hope you're okay with that. Thanks so much. So I want to know, there's three things I want to know. I want to know your most uncomfortable experience and how you got through it. Okay. And with that, you can give us the condensed version, because I've kept you and I'm so grateful for that. But I want to know like a time where maybe you lost your way or started to question yourself at some point. And you can make it about the college experience, or you can make it about something before if it was a life-defining moment. Because I think there's a lot of people in high school who watch these who are in the middle of those. So anything's fair game. So I want to know your most uncomfortable experience and how you got through it. And then I want to know something that brings you so much joy when you think of your experience at Roosevelt, something that just makes you overflow with happiness and light. And then the final question is going to be, what advice would you give to high school you if you can go back in time? So that's a preview, but we're gonna make this fast-paced round robin, and I might dig a little deeper, but I'm going to try not to. It's hard for me not to. Chandler, do you have something that comes to mind? An experience that made you super uncomfortable during your college experience? It sounds like Haven has uncomfortable experiences about you. Like if you need help, Haven can point those out for you because she seems to know you very well.
Haven, if you have one for me, feel free. I don't even know what it would be.
Do you want to give him a little bit of help, Haven?
No, I'll let him do it.
I don't know. No, say it. I think
it could also be it could be romantic. I don't know if you're single or in a relationship, Chandler. Are you or you don't want to talk about it? Are you in any relationships right now that you want to talk about? You're single?
Not anymore. Yeah.
Single. Okay, so maybe it could have been the breakup. I don't want to give you the uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, maybe actually. That was very uncomfortable.
It was like deep. I could tell it was deeply hidden. For some reason I was feeling it, man.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna talk about it, like, yeah, it was a hard breakup, but I mean,
yeah. Were you in college when it happened?
Yeah, it was last year. Yeah.
Was this someone you knew from high school, or was this someone you met in college?
Mm-hmm. High school.
High school?
Yeah.
You don't want to share. I respect your boundaries, man. Like truly, but that's always that could be a really hard thing. People go to college, they have their high school relationship, things change. I mean, I was devastated. My girlfriend I met the love of my life, and I went to college, and then my first year in college, she was a senior in high school. I tell this story a lot when I'm doing events, and she was having the time of her life. Her father compared our relationship to a dying puppy, and he urged Alexis to shoot the puppy. So she called me, and she's like, "Yeah, my dad was talking about our relationship, and she's like, we were comparing it to a dying puppy, and he said I really needed to like end it and shoot the puppy." Yeah, it was sad. She shot the puppy. I was devastated, man, because I didn't think there was any woman in the world who could love me. And that's my own stuff. I thought there was like one woman who could love me, and I met her, right? And like when she was done, I was like, oh my gosh, how do I ever meet anyone who would ever love this? Because love is like that. Love is so hard, and it's so hard to feel good about yourself when you're in high school, because everybody makes everybody feel like garbage. So
Yeah.
it's hard. But anyway, so you dealt with a breakup, and that was difficult for you.
Yeah, definitely.
How'd you get over it?
Honestly, it just took time.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with Haven and Emma at that point, just because, hang out with friends, get your mind off it. I put myself to work a lot. Obviously, like it was more so just do your own thing. I worked literally all summer. I went full time at my job.
Yeah.
So it was just like keep my mind off of it,
And you got through it.
out of mind, out of sight.
Yeah, but you're staying away from love now. Too dangerous, too hot.
Pretty much it's just going to happen if it happens. That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we can continue that one another time. We'll do like the love college conversation, because I like talking about that stuff. I wrote a book on dating too. So like I told you, like rejection, I'm the rejection king. And as the rejection king, like you live a lot in the world of dating and relationships. And that was Chicago was where I learned the most and got the most rejected. So save it for another time. Haven, tell me about your most uncomfortable experience. I think we might have gotten a little preview before, but open that up a little bit. But I think it was your first year. If it's something else, you could share that, but I want to know how you were able to get through that.
Is it like funny things that were uncomfortable?
No, I like real. I mean, it doesn't have to be funny. I mean, even like horrible things can be funny.
I mean, I called my professor dad in front of the whole class once. That was pretty uncomfortable.
What was the context of that?
I was trying to get his attention, and I was going to say Dr. Falls, and I literally said, Dad.
And that's great. Did everyone hear you say dad?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Did Dr. Falls hear you say dad?
Yes.
Yeah. And what did Dr. Falls do?
His favorite line to say to me all the time is, wow.
Yeah.
He said, wow.
Wow.
His face just goes so blank. He's just like, wow, really?
I like the dad. But I want to just, I don't say you got horrible grades. You had a really hard first year. You really struggled. You're a perfectionist who's used to getting A's. You didn't get an A. You probably got something a lot worse than a B.
Okay, we can talk about that.
Yeah, just give us the dirt on that and how you got through it. You can just give us the quick version.
Okay, so my first test ever in college was a music theory exam, and I studied so hard for it. I consider myself like a really serious student. I studied, I practiced, I was in a practice room all the time. And so I went into this test, I was like, I got this. I was like, I'm not even worried about this. Sat in the front row because, I'm that person. And then as soon as the test started crying, immediately started crying. Just had... front row of the class. My professor probably thought I was a crazy person, but I failed that exam it wasn't even like, oh, you got like a really low C. No, it was a D.
Wow.
It was a very low D.
This was your first D ever.
Yes.
And in college, of all places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you cried. You actually had tears falling on your test.
Oh, yeah. My professor was playing the piano and I was crying.
Wow. Was it a sad song?
I don't even remember what it was.
It's probably melodic dictation.
Yeah.
Oh, so what did you do after you get your D? Tell us how you handled that.
So I had to wallow in self-pity for a couple days, just sit in a corner and cry. That was my initial reaction. But I'm a big believer in communication. So I went to my professor and I was just honest with him. I was like, I don't understand why I did so poorly. I don't understand why I'm struggling. And he was very willing to help. And he told me I was studying wrong. He was like, more is not necessarily better. He was like, you can spend 4 hours doing something, but someone who does it more efficiently in 20 minutes will do better. So I went to my professors a lot freshman year whenever that would happen, and they really helped me a lot through it. Because professors want to help you. This is kind of a tangent. I'll make it fast. But professors are here to help. And I think a lot of students are like, oh no, I can't go to my professor because they'll think I'm stupid or like I'm too scared. But professors love questions. And if you go to their office hours and you're like, help, that's just how I've survived college.
Yeah. Are you friends with that professor who was playing the song when you were crying? Do you have a good relationship now?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I find that like when you have those moments where it just is not good, that those tend to be the relationships that last the longest and have the strongest bonds.
Mhm.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Sené, what's your most uncomfortable experience? How'd you get through it?
Um, I hate showing any sort of emotion in front of anyone ever. And I know it's a little juxtaposition being an actress, but it gives me the ick to show emotion other than happiness or maybe anger in front of people. It's something I'm working on. And my freshman year was really rough for me financially. I was kind of like month to month, like, am I going to get kicked out of college this month? And I lived in a room with 7 girls. My whole suite had 7 girls in it. So there's no privacy. I lived in a room with 4 girls, and then there were 3 other singles in my suite. So nowhere to go. And I remember there was one day where I was so frustrated and I talked to so many people and I felt like I was spinning my wheels and I felt so hopeless. And I just sat, it wasn't even my bed. I sat on one of my roommates' beds and I just complete sobbing, crying. No clue what to do, just sobbing. And it gives me the ick to even think about the fact that I showed emotion like that, but just so like defeated. And that was like probably like the low. And one of my roommates, who is now my best friend, or one of my best friends, she is not a very emotional person either, and she doesn't know how to deal with emotions. And so she came over and she sat next to me on the bed and she put her head on my shoulder. And that was all she did. But from her, it was like, yeah. And I picked myself up. I had the little, you've had tougher times than this, you're gonna have tougher times than this talk, and kept it pushing.
Nice. That was freshman year.
That was freshman year.
And you figured out how to pay? Like you were able to feed yourself and you're able to clothe yourself and buy your books and stuff?
So I never, I got through it. I'm now a sophomore, but that's also another reason, like when I say by the grace of God, like on paper, it makes no sense how I made it through, but here I am as a sophomore and I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. So I'm just grateful to everyone who helped get me here, because it was like, it took a village, and then now I'm an RA and worked really hard, saved up. So
yeah. Well, I love it. It's just, for anybody who's on the brink, knowing that it can get better. It does get better. It always gets better. It always does. I just want people, people don't get that. It always does. Madison, do you have an uncomfortable experience you could share with us and how you got through it?
Yes. So to use a term that Sené has graciously brought into my life, the ick. Memories that give me the ick, I like shove down. So this was the first one that like came to mind, because even as I'm thinking about it, I'm like getting like the weird like, so the first week of school, we immediately started rehearsals for our freshman showcase. And to preface this, the head of our program, Jane Lanier, worked like with Bob Fosse, was Tony nominated, extremely incredibly, like she walks into a room, you look type person. Like she she's tall. She's got this like gray spiky hair with a purple streak in it, like very like just fierce looking woman. So first of all, already terrified, but we're in rehearsals. This is like the first week. I don't even think classes have started yet, but we're starting to work on this dance for our freshman showcase. And it's like late. We're all exhausted. And somebody asked a question, just like a general question, and I answered it, which in the dance world is a huge big no. And I answered it, and I went, and Jane turns and looks at me, and she's like, I am the teacher. And in that moment, I wanted to sink down to the bottom of the floor and melt through the ground. I was like, and like after class, like after the rehearsal, I went up and I was like, I'm so sorry, like blah, 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 blah. And she was like, no, like, she was like nice about it too. She didn't even yell at me. Like, she was like, it's just learn from this experience. And I went home, I was on the top bunk. So I crawled up into my bunk bed and laid there for like an hour, like just like rocking back and forth. I was like, no, this didn't just happen. But yeah, that.
Oh, I could see it on you. I know that feeling. So now the final, well, I've got two. I'm going to go super fast. Okay. Legit, super fast. Okay. I want it bright. Something you're really proud of, something that makes you fill up with joy and experience you had at Roosevelt that just is so wonderful. The opposite of the ick. Can you give me one shining bright highlight that fills you with joy? And Haven, I'll just start with you. Are you surprised? I'm starting with you.
Can we circle back around? I gotta think.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna end with you. Sené.
So definitely the day that I got the email that I had been selected to be an RA, it was literally me and Maddie, and all we did was just stress over it. I had an asthma attack in ballet, and because it was way past the time they were supposed to be out, and we were like, well, I don't know, is he not hearing anything, a bad thing? And I remember she got the email first, and I was like, oh, they're not gonna let two like theater conservatory people do it. And I was like, Maddie, I'm so proud of you. And I checked my email, and we had both got it, and we just screamed and hugged, like sunk to the floor crying as if we had just been like got the golden ticket out of a candy bar. I called my mom, she cried. Maddie called her mom, she cried. We were all crying. I think my aunt was on the phone, we were crying. The football team was at the table, and we were in the middle of the cafeteria. The entire football team started clapping for us. Like that was the moment where I was like, it literally, yeah.
You needed that too because of just the financial implication, and like you were saying, of just being able to eat and survive, and that was huge, right? So that was like one of the things that made it such a relief for you. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. It meant that I would be able to. One of my big things was I didn't know if I was going to be able to. Well, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to get through second semester freshman year. But once I got to second semester freshman year, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to come back for sophomore year. And that was like the cementing, like, I literally turned to Maddie and I was like, I'm going to be a sophomore in college. And then we both just bawled, started crying.
Oh, yay. Maddie, what about you? A bright, big moment for you?
The moment that Sené just described so beautifully, that definitely is in the top of my experiences here at Roosevelt. This sounds like corny, but honestly, this semester, after everything that happened second semester last year and then this summer, like getting back into the work, and particularly in one of my classes, like it's just been so nice. And like I've been very like proud to like put in the work in that class every single day. And like, I don't know, every time I leave that class, I feel more confident and more capable, I guess. And so I am kind of proud of that because that never used to be a thing for high school, Maddie.
Which class?
It's actually our acting for the musical stage class. Our wonderful teacher, Stephen Shellhart, is amazing. Love him.
Yeah. You all seem to really like your teachers. You know, you have a really wonderful relationship. It seems like Roosevelt is about the people. That's really what I've been feeling, and all of you being with each other and having these wonderful people who really want you and give you that sense of belonging. Chandler, bright, big moment? Do you have one of those?
If I'm gonna be lame and just say it's like, so last year it was every single time my quartet came together to rehearse. But if we're gonna say something that's happened recently, I had my first in-person rehearsal with my duet partner, and it was so uplifting and like, oh, it was so great. Like I could not explain the relief I could feel to just have another person in the room. Like we were across the room as far as we could possibly get from each other, but just to be able to hear that sound together is just amazing.
Yeah, I could feel that. That sounds awesome. Haven, do you have a bright, big moment that you could think of?
Yeah, get ready for full corn because this is really corny. um,
Welcome
so
to Illinois.
my freshman jury, I don't know if you know what juries are, but we basically have to present like our repertoire, what we've learned over the semester in like a performance for all of the faculty in our program. So we perform a few songs for them and they grade us. So those are like the big stressful finals that everyone has to do. And I remember my very first semester freshman jury, I got up there and I was so proud of what I did. Like all the hell that I went through, it just felt like that moment on that stage, as corny as it sounds, it just felt like it was all worth it. And I feel like that was really when I started to switch my mindset that failure and rejection and not being perfect all the time is part of life and it's part of especially college. And you just have to learn to take it in stride and it doesn't make you a failure if you fail, and it just is something that you can learn from it. So that was a good wow moment.
Yeah, that's a great, as a fellow performer, I like to think of a gymnast who's able to do like all their crazy stuff and somehow stick it. And it's that sense of like when you stick it, it's just like, even when you were talking about the sax duet, Chandler, like I could tell it's just like, when you stick it, it's just the most beautiful energy and wonderful feeling, and it's all worth it. But it is a train wreck to get there, and then some. But when you get there, it's just such a beautiful experience. So that curtain going up Madison and on Broadway, and Sené being in the Wicked ensemble, and Chandler being a professor and performer, and Haven being on stage in Germany, showing people that it's possible. That's just all wonderful. If you could go back in time, because you've all had so many wonderful experiences and been through so much, if you could go back to talk to high school you, freshman you get to see you, Chandler, you get to see you standing in the corner in your blue shirt in the hallway, and you get to go, and you're wearing your CCPA shirt now, and you get to walk up and you go, "Hey, Chandler," and you get to whisper something to you. What would you tell you?
Start taking saxophone and piano lessons because piano's gonna kick your butt.
Perfect. Okay. He really needs to hear that. What about you, Madison?
I I think I would have to go to little high school me and tell her to stop worrying about life and just live it.
Yeah. Sine, what would you tell you?
I would definitely tell my like just overarching, you get through it.
Yeah,
Like
you
there's
always.
another side to this.
Yeah. Yeah. Haven, what about you? What would you tell high school Haven?
I would definitely tell high school Haven to don't stress so much, don't sweat the small stuff because your overall progress is more important than one grade on one test in one class your freshman year of college or your freshman year of high school.
Right. Awesome. Well, you are all so wonderful. I was saying before we started, I just feel like the time we spend together is a gift. And I hope that, the people who have been watching this and listening to this have really enjoyed this. And I know that Chandler, Haven, Sine, Madison, or Maddie, you've all made yourself available, and your social media and how people can reach out to you is included with this. If you're listening to the podcast, you can always check out the notes. And if you're watching this, you can see uh, how to get a hold of all of these amazing people. Before we officially wrap, is there anything else you need to clear up? Anything you mentioned that you wanted to revisit before we say goodbye? Or do you feel like we did good work here? You're good? All right.
Feel accomplished.
Cool. Well, it's good. It's a real sense of satisfaction. And I'm so excited to stay in touch with all of you. And if I could help you in any way, like legit, like I'm totally in your corner, and find me on LinkedIn, find me through Facebook, my social media. If there's someone I know who you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he knows that person, I'm more than happy to introduce you and do whatever I can to help you to just get wherever you want to go. So just know, like, truly, I mean that. And I want to thank you all. And for all of you who are watching and who are listening, I'm so grateful that I could be here today to share a college conversation with Roosevelt University students. I'm Harlan Cohen, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks, everybody.